Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, it was page 44, it was number 4. B of t equals 5.
So number 4 on page.
447.
Okay, I'm ready.
And it was b of t equals 5t minus t squared over 3t. And then you said t cannot equal 0.
The denominator of any fraction cannot be 0. 3 times t cannot be 0. Divide both sides by 3. T does not equal 0. Therefore, the domain of this function is negative infinity 0, union 0, infinity. Is this okay? Is this okay?
Yeah.
Good. Other questions? Anything else you worked on? The only thing I wanted to ask you, what was the last problem? I think it was still in 7-1, but I don't remember. I forgot to write. We did 40?
Yeah, that was our last problem. I think it was page 448,
Yes.
and we stopped at 40.
Okay. We did 40.
We did 40, yeah.
Okay, very good. So let's look at 44 on page 448. Any questions? Please ask. Anything. Anything. In 44 we have, still we are simplifying. Okay, so I'm asked to simplify this rational expression. And I will say I like one of these two polynomials, but I do not like the other one. Which one I do not like? I prefer the bottom. I don't like the numerator. Why I don't like the numerator? It's not in decreasing order. So negative x plus 3 divided by x cubed minus 27. Now I still don't like the numerator because leading coefficient. Excellent. So I have to factor it out. And I will put it in front of the fraction line. What will you tell me to write at the top? Wonderful. X minus 3 indeed. And now let's think for a moment, because the denominator is a binomial, and we reviewed chapter 6. What is that? Difference of? Very good. Once you say difference of cubes, it means that you will give me a binomial and then a trinomial.
X minus 3.
Good.
And x squared minus 3x plus 9. Or plus 3x plus 9.
Very good. Remember the sequence of signs. Minus, minus, plus, or plus, plus, minus. Good. So then I have to write two restrictions. What is the restriction for this? X not equal? Good. Now, you can say this cannot be equal 0. Let's try. When I write x squared plus 3x plus 9 not equal 0, I will find the least, I will use the quadratic formula. So what is the quadratic formula? How do I start the quadratic formula? Minus 3 plus or minus the square root of, which is 9, minus 4ac over 2. Obviously, the solutions are what type? Say it again. The solutions are? They are imaginary. 9 minus 36 is an imaginary number, right? So I shouldn't even continue. So now please tell me, so we know that this, does it touch the x-axis? Remember the quadratic function from chapter 9. Does it have a minimum or a maximum? It has the maximum when the leading coefficient is negative. So it has a minimum. It has a minimum and it never touches the x-axis. What is the sign of this function always? It's way above the x-axis. What is its sign? Always positive. Can always positive be 0? No. So there are no solutions coming from here. No solutions. Always this one. AL. Always greater than 0. So the only restriction I have to state is x not equal 3. One more time. Let's analyze this one more time. This is a quadratic function with a positive leading coefficient. From chapter 9, we know it looks like this. Because there are no real solutions, this will be an I, right? This will be imaginary. Then I know that the function is always positive, way above the x-axis. It doesn't touch it because it has a minimum. So since it's always positive, it will never be 0 because there are no real solutions. So the only restriction for this is x not equal 3. What do I do next? Yes, I remove one factor. Please write 1. When you remove a factor, write 1. So you don't make a mistake. And now can anyone give us what does this equal to? As the final answer. Exactly, negative in front and 1 over x squared plus 3x plus 9 if x is not 3. And this is the simplified form. Okay, we'll have plenty of opportunity to simplify again. Let's now go to multiplying and dividing, and we'll come back. 7.2. Multiplying and dividing rational expressions. Nothing different from multiplying and dividing fractions. But I just have to be careful because there is x involved. Okay, on page 458, I would like to start with problem 13. X squared minus 25. Everything divided by x squared minus 3x minus 10 and multiplied by x plus 2 divided by x. Now, here's what I would like to do, and you say yay or nay. I like to simplify this x with this x, and I would like to simplify this x squared with this x squared, and maybe divide those two by 5. Nay, of course not, because we know that we cannot simplify terms. Good. So then what do I do with x squared minus 25? It's a binomial, it's in descending order. Right. Special product, x plus 5, x minus 5. Excellent. Now I look at the denominator and I say the denominator
1, 2 factors. 5, 2, negative 5, positive 2.
very good. So x minus 5 and x plus 2. And these two are already factored. I cannot do anything to those. How many restrictions would you give? Because you cannot simplify. We're not allowed to simplify before we state restrictions. I can't touch anything. 3 restrictions. One coming from here, one coming from here, and one coming from here. So I'm going to list them. And you give them to me.
5,
Yes?
2,
Very good. Now I'm ready to simplify. Now please tell me what will you simplify first?
x minus 7,
So you will simplify the x minus 5.
and then the x plus 2.
You will simplify the x minus 5 and you'll write 1. You'll simplify x plus 2 and you will write 1. And then you will give the final simplified form, which will include this.
X plus 5 over x, and x is not 5 over 2.
Perfect. And that's the final answer. Let's look at another multiplication. Any questions on this problem? Okay, let's look at 15. 15 is x squared plus 6x plus 8. Everything divided by x squared plus x minus 20. And multiply by x squared plus 2x minus 15. And divide by x squared plus 8x plus 16. Not a difficult situation because the leading coefficients of all these are 1. 1 minute. And I put my attendance in the meantime. Okay? Don't forget to factor everything, state restrictions, and then simplify. Do we need more time?
Yeah.
Okay. Only for you.
Thank you.
Almost done? Okay. So can anyone give us the factored form of the top of the first fraction?
X plus 4, X plus 2,
Do we all agree with x plus 4, x plus 2? The bottom,
X minus 4, X plus 5,
do we all agree with x minus 4, x plus 5? Okay, the second one,
X minus 5,
careful.
X plus 5, 13,
Do we all agree with x plus 5, x minus 3? And the last one, oops, do you all agree with x plus 4 squared? Good. How many restrictions will you give? Good. X not equal. Good. Now I'm ready to simplify. Is there anything I can get rid of?
X plus 4,
1x plus 4 from here with 1 from here.
X plus 5,
Is there anything else? No. So what is the top? Do not multiply, do not distribute. You have to keep it in the factored form.
X plus 2, X minus 3, X minus 4, X plus 2.
Any questions? Yes, please.
You canceled out one cannot equal, right?
Yes. Say it again.
You canceled out like the ones,
Only I simplify only the ones that I see top and bottom. So I see x plus 4 in both, I simplified 1. I see x plus 5 in both, top and bottom, I simplify 1.
no, I didn't see that one.
That's okay. Okay, let's look at a division now. Let's say 27 on page 458. And that reads x plus 2 divided by 7 minus x, further divided by fractional line x squared minus 5x plus 6 divided by x squared minus 9x plus 14.
Would it be the same thing as we would do for multiplication, but it's just division?
Right, but in a division, remember I cannot simplify across like I did here.
Okay.
I cannot simplify if this symbol is division. I cannot simplify x plus 5 with x plus 5. I have to wait to change. Yes, the fraction by itself always.
Okay.
Yes. Good. Exactly. Now I look at this problem. I see it's a division, and there is one polynomial that I don't like. Which polynomial I don't like? 7 minus x. So I will have to rearrange it. So in the meantime, I will factor if I can. So it's negative x plus 7 divided by. Can I factor the top? How?
X minus 6x.
I can't because the product must be positive 6. No problem?
X minus 3, X minus 2.
Very good. And the denominator?
X minus 2, X minus 7.
Very good. I'm back to the first fraction, which I don't like now for a different reason. Right, I have to put it in front. The top is x plus 2. Can anyone dictate the denominator? After we pull out a negative, plus over negative is minus in front.
X minus 7.
Do you all agree with x minus 7 in the denominator after we pull out negative 1? Okay, keep it in the division form for one more second. X minus 3, x minus 2, x minus 2, x minus 7. How many restrictions will you give? And then we'll think of what to do next. But first I have to state the restrictions. Yes, because these two are the same. I will write x not equal 7 and then x not equal 2. I am allowed to simplify the fraction by itself. I cannot do this in a division. But here I cannot simplify, but here I can. By? No, not by 2. 2 is not a factor here. X minus 2, I agree with that. So then I can copy the first fraction, and now what do I do with the second fraction? Yes, so I will have negative in front, x plus 2 over x minus 7 multiplied by x minus 7 over x minus 3. Here I have a new denominator, which I did not have before. So I have to add one more restriction. Which restriction has to be added to the list? From here, x cannot equal 3. So now I'm ready to further simplify if I can. Is there anything I can get rid of now? X minus 7, please put 1. And then the final simplified form with the restrictions together is negative outside, x plus 2 over x minus 3. Okay, I'm going to give you a division to work on, and then we will continue. Okay. This is really the hardest. You can't see anything harder than this. They're all n's. I'm sorry, my handwriting is not perfect when I stand up. I'm sorry about that. So it's all n. If you don't like n, put x. It's fine by me.
Is that 18?
8n squared. I'm checking now. She's right. I'd rather check. 8n squared minus 18
Oh, it's
over 2n squared minus 5n plus 3 divided by 6n squared plus 7n minus 3 over n squared minus... Ooh! See, I said x and I wrote x. I'm so powerful. I meant to write n. Good. 3 minutes. Let me know if you need any help. We need more time? Okay. Why is this a difficult problem? Because these two require, since the leading coefficient is not 1 and they're not special products, require that long process with factoring by grouping. And this one is okay. But this one also requires thinking a little bit. Can anyone give me any of these? We'll see in a moment if that's true. N times 2n is 2n squared. Minus 3n minus 2n, correct. Negative 1 times negative 3, correct. For sure, that is the correct factored form. Can anyone give us the denominator of the second one, which should not be a problem because the leading coefficient is 1? Everyone agrees with n minus 8, n minus 1? Okay. Can anyone give us, or is anyone done with this first, the top of the second fraction? Okay.
I got 3n minus 1 and 2n plus 3.
We'll see in a moment if that's true. 3n times 2n, correct. Positive 9n minus 2n, correct. Negative 1 times 3, negative 3, correct. Now, can anyone give us the top of this?
I got pull out a 2.
Absolutely. If I don't pull out a 2, I can't factor.
2n minus 3.
So this is n squared minus 9 after you pull out a 2. And then you have,
Well, there should still be a 4 left in parentheses. Okay, so 4n.
oh yes, I'm sorry.
And then I got 2n minus 3, 2n plus 2.
Do you all agree with this so far? Okay, now we have to state restrictions before we flip. So can anyone give us 1, 2, 3 restrictions?
N cannot equal 1. N cannot equal 3 halves.
Do you all agree with these 3 restrictions? Yes? Perfect. Now, locally, or each fraction by itself, I can simplify, and I will. Because I don't want to carry this again. I already stated restriction. It can go away. So then I have 2n plus 3 divided by n minus 1. And now I'm ready to multiply it. I just don't have enough room here. Multiply it by n minus 8, n minus 1, 3n minus 1, and 2n plus 3. 2 more factors just popped up by the fact that I flipped the second fraction. So I need to add another restriction for this and another restriction for this.
Negative 3 halves.
Yeah, so I'm going to come back and just put plus or minus in front of 3 halves
And 1/3.
and 1/3. So also n cannot be 1/3.
And then you cancel out.
And now I'm ready to simplify, correct? Everyone with me? So first of all, I have an n minus 1 from the denominator with an n minus 1 from the numerator. Would you agree with that? And then what else? 2n plus 3 with 2n plus 3. What is the simplified form, assuming all restrictions are fulfilled?
2n minus 3.
Do not multiply. Perfect. 2 quantity n minus 8 over
3n minus
This was really the most difficult problem from the entire section. So I picked one so you can see how much work this is. Remember, we cannot simplify terms. We have to factor, and we only simplify factors. We have to state these restrictions because otherwise, I will say this one more time. 2 over 2 is 1 with no restrictions because 2 cannot be 0. But 5x plus 1 over 5x plus 1 is 1 only if x is not negative 1/5. Okay? Moving on. Let's add now and subtract rational expressions with the same denominator. This is no-brainer at all. 7.3, adding, subtracting, rational expressions with like denominators. Okay, I will start with, let's say, problem 13 on page 466. And that is 2x plus 3, x squared minus x minus 30 minus x minus 2 over x squared minus x minus 30. This is a different ballgame. When we add and subtract rational expressions, we never touch the numerator. We never factor the numerator till the very last step. At the very end, when I'm finally ready to write the final simplified form, then I will look at the numerator and say, can I factor this? But not until then. Yes, the denominators have to be factored. I see that this is the same denominator. So I can write one fraction line, and I would write one denominator, but in factored form already. Can anyone give us the factored form of x squared minus x minus 30? So then immediately you will give me two restrictions then. Good. And now please dictate the top and be very careful. The negative sign in front of a fraction behaves like a negative sign in front of a grouping symbol. So the negative sign gets distributed, or -1 gets distributed to all terms at the top. So now please give me the top of this new fraction. Very good. Now we have to simplify the top. How will you simplify the top? Good. Very good. Over x minus 6 and x plus 5. Only now I'm asking myself, is there anything I can get rid of? And the answer is yes, and I can get rid of. And please write the 1, because otherwise some students write, instead of 1 over x minus 6, they write x minus 6, or they write 0. So please put the 1. So what is the simplified form? Any questions on this? Anyone? Okay, let me choose an example, a problem for you, and then we'll move on. Let's say 17. In 17 we have 2x squared, everything divided by x minus 5, minus 25 plus x squared, everything divided by x minus 5. 1 minute. And then we'll move on to the real stuff. Do we need more time? Okay, I see two fractions with the same denominator. I will copy the denominator, and right away I would write x not equal. Good. And please carefully dictate the top. Do you all agree with 22x squared minus 25 minus x squared? Okay, so now I have to perform the simplification, or combining like terms, I should say better, in the numerator. And what do we get? So we have x squared minus 25 divided by x minus 5. And now I ask myself, is there any way I can is there any way I can factor the numerator? Yes. Is there any factor that I could get rid of? Please write 1. And then the simplified form, assuming that x is not 5, is x plus 5. Very good. Seven point 4. This is the real stuff, adding and subtracting rational expressions with unlike denominators. This is a totally different situation. Okay, allow me to work on a couple of problems before I let you work on a few. Okay. I will start with problem 9 on page 472. 3 divided by x plus 2 minus 2x divided by x squared minus 4. I will look at these two denominators first. I see an x plus 2 and I see an x squared minus 4. I know that x plus 2 is already factored. Nobody can further factor x plus 2. But I see that, and I know that x squared minus 4 can be further factored. So that will be my first step. 3 over x plus 2 minus 2x divided by, and I know how to factor x squared minus 4 into, good. Now I would immediately state two restrictions. Very good. And then I will find the least common denominator. Here is how I think about it and how I find it. Careful. I look at these three factors, but actually only two of them are different. Both factors have to be in the least common denominator. Since all powers are 1, then that must be it. If the powers will be different, then there will be a different discussion, and I will choose an example in a minute. But in this case, x plus 2, and x minus 2 have all power 1. All different factors have to be in the least common denominator. I only see two different factors. I only see x plus 2 and x minus 2. Those have to be in the least common denominator. The next question is this, and I ask myself that question when I add numerical fractions as well. X plus 2 was multiplied by something to get this. What was x plus 2 multiplied by to get this? And the answer is, this is what the top needs to get as well. That is not a fraction line, that is just a reminder. It tells me, look, you multiplied x plus 2 by x minus 2 in the denominator. You have to do the same thing to the top. Otherwise, you change the problem. Now, what was x minus 2 times x plus 2 multiplied by to get this? And the answer is 1. You don't have to put it. I'm just making a point. Now, please dictate what I should write as the numerator of this new fraction. And remember, you have to distribute. 3x minus 6. Careful. Minus in front of the fraction line will go to the top. And minus 2x. Now I combine like terms. So the numerator is x minus 6. The denominator is x minus 2 times x plus 2. There's nothing else I can do here. And this is the simplified form and the final answer of that subtraction of two rational expressions. Any questions, please? Yes. I'd like to choose a couple more, and then I will give you problems to work on.
You're just trying to add the.
Let me give you an example, like, for example, this. 1/2 minus 1/3. The least common denominator is 6. 2 was multiplied by 3. I have to do the same thing to the top. 3 was multiplied by 2. I have to do the same thing to the top. So then I write 3 minus 2. So I apply the same procedure here. Once I find the least common denominator, I ask myself, okay, I multiplied this by x minus 2. I have to do the same thing to the top. So let me see if, let's look at one more problem or two more problems and then see if you have more questions. Yes, 44 is, or 43 is a good one. 43 on page 472. I will do that too, this one too, together with you. X over x minus 1, x squared minus 1, I'm sorry, minus 2 over x squared minus 2x plus 1. Again, I'm looking at these two fractions. They don't have the same denominator. I thought something over there's some guy next door. So they don't have the same denominator. I see that both denominators can be factored, and I have to do that. Is there a shepherd coming with?
No.
Sheep. Okay, so x over. I know how to completely factor x squared minus 1, which is?
X minus 1 plus 1.
And I know how to completely factor x squared minus 2x plus 1. First of all, because I signed the contract at the beginning of the semester. And secondly, because I reviewed chapter 6 completely. Very good. See how important it is to move away from foiling these special products. Okay, so now can anyone give us the restrictions for this problem? I have to state them right here, right now. Plus? Good, very good. Then the next step would be how many different factors I see here. Different. How many different factors I see there? 2. Both have to be in the least common denominator. However, now I have to talk about powers, which I did not have to do in the first example. So x plus 1 here has power 1, x minus 1 has power 1, but this one has power 2. I have to choose the highest power. I'm not adding powers, but I have to choose the highest power. X plus 1 has power 1. It will stay with power 1. But x minus 1 has the highest power 2. It has to stay with power 2. So now I ask myself the same question from before. This was multiplied by what to get this? Indeed. Now I'm asking myself the second question. This was multiplied by something to get this. X plus 1 indeed. So now carefully distribute x, distribute negative 2, and please tell me what to write at the top. Careful. Very good. Yes? Very good. Excellent. Do you all agree with x squared minus x minus 2x minus 2? One more time. X times x is x squared. X times negative 1 is negative x. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Do we agree?
I'm very confused.
Well, which part?
I'm sorry. Like, I don't understand, like, the x plus 1 over the 2, Because you're talking about the
Which
power
one?
cube.
Which one? Which one?
I'm sorry, you got it in the blue right there, the middle. And then just above that you have x plus 1, just above the 2.
This one?
Yeah, but
Okay.
we didn't have an x plus 1.
Okay.
Just x minus 1
Okay.
quantity squared.
Okay. So let's say 1/4 plus 1/3. The least common denominator
12.
is 12. 4 was multiplied by?
3.
3 was multiplied by?
4.
3 plus 4 is 7. So, x plus 1 times x minus 1 was multiplied by what to get this? One more time. X plus 1 times x minus 1 was multiplied by a quantity to give x plus 1 times x minus 1 squared. What was this multiplied by to get this? This is here, 1, 2. So this must be 1 that is missing. So I have x plus 1, but
Okay.
here I have x minus 1, but here I have 2 of those. So one of them was added, multiplied.
Okay.
So now x minus 1 is here, but this one is not, so it was multiplied. So if I multiply the denominator by x plus 1, I have to multiply the numerator by x plus 1, exactly how I do it with numerical fractions. Of course, this is much easier than that. So therefore, x times x is x squared, x times negative 1 is negative x, negative 2 times x is negative 2x, and negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Is it clear now how we establish this quantity?
Yeah, sure is. Yeah,
Excellent.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Perfect, my pleasure. So then I have x squared and minus 3x and minus 2 divided by x plus 1, x minus 1 squared. Now I'm asking myself, can I factor the top? And I can, because the product of negative 2 and the sum of negative 3, I can get it. So that will be the final simplified form, assuming that x is not plus or minus 1. I would like to choose another problem that we will work on still together. That's it. That's the final answer. Don't have to do anything else. You're never, ever going to multiply the factors in the denominator. Don't ever do it. We need them factored. Okay, allow me to choose another problem, and then I'll let you work on one problem. Let's say 53. In 53, we have 13 over x squared minus 5x plus 6 and minus 5 divided by x minus 3. We're still working on this together, and then we'll choose problems for you. Of course, the first step is to factor the denominator. Excellent. So 13 divided by
X minus 3.
good. So therefore, you're going to give me 2 restrictions. 2, very good. And now you are going to analyze for me, please, the least common denominator. And you're going to tell me the least common denominator must be blah. You agree that there is no need to talk about powers here because all factors in the initial problem have power 1. Do we understand why the least common denominator is consists of all different factors I see here in the denominator? We agree or we disagree? Okay, so then what does the first fraction need at the top? What was it multiplied by? What did I multiply this by to get this? 1, right. What do I have for the second fraction? Do you all agree with multiplication of the top of the second fraction by x minus 2? Yes or no?
Yes.
So you have x minus 3 was multiplied by x minus 2 to get this, so you don't have to multiply the top by the same thing. Good. So then, can anyone dictate the numerator now?
13 minus 5x plus 15.
Plus,
10, sorry.
no problem. Do you all agree with 13 minus 5 times x and minus 5 times negative 2? And then the simplified form will be negative 5x plus 23 divided by, assuming the conditions are fulfilled. That was, sorry, 53. I would recommend, but I'm okay if you don't do it at this point, but I recommend this. I don't care what the book says, because this is the right answer. Okay, now let me do one more, and then we'll choose problems for you. Let's say, yeah, 45. We need to practice a little bit here. This is not trivial. 3a over 2a plus 6 minus a minus 1 divided by a plus 3. Okay. Can anyone tell us what will be the first step here? No, not yet. This has to be factored. So 3a divided by 2 quantity a plus 3. Very good. So then you are going to give only one restriction, which would be perfect. So now we are ready to find the least common denominator.
2a.
Right, there are two factors up there, two factors in the least common denominator. What will you multiply the top of the first fraction by?
1.
1. What will you multiply the top of the second fraction by? 2. Do you all agree with 2? Can anyone dictate the top?
3a minus 2a
Plus 2. No problem. So it's a plus 2 over 2 a plus 3, assuming the restriction is fulfilled. I think we are ready to work on our own. I think. Let's start with 51. If we understand this, the last two sections will be a breeze, absolute breeze. If we know how to do this, the other two sections are based on this. 51. And that will be the end of the new material. Okay, 2 minutes, please.